Hey, yo, oh my God, say it ain't so. So, Jussie Smollett, all the charges are dropped. All the I know y'all mad. I know you mad. I know you mad. I know you mad. I know you mad as shit right now. I know it. I know it's burning, right? So, for me, it just speaks more to why I do what I do. You know, what is justice today? Does it even exist, right? A lot of times most people think OJ deserved to go to jail, but he got off, right? Some people think Michael Jackson deserved to go to jail, he got off. Some people think Robert Blake, he should have went to jail for killing his wife. Some people think R. Kelly should have went to jail back in the day in that other trial. We see a lot of instances where people with money seem to finesse their way out of situations. And we see that the law does not protect us from them. But see, the main reason why is because we know that law is not transparent. We know that you don't even understand your rights. You have to pay somebody to speak the same language you speak to get you out of some shit. You understand the fact that you can't go to the judge and defend yourself. You can't go to the judge and say what you really want to say. You have to have someone else speak the same language you speak, yet you don't understand what they're saying, and you're just hoping that it is for your benefit. That is the law of today, is that, and I've heard this saying, I forgot it specifically, but it was, if you're rich, you're free. If you're broke, you go to jail. That's justice. But see, why is that? Let's break it down. Why is the idea of justice, the scales of justice, why are they so distorted? Why is it when it comes to law, all of us are confused and we literally put our lives in other people's hands? And the more money you give them, the more obligated they are to defend you and do everything they can for your best interest. Why is it that way? Why is it that way? Why is it a lawyer is so expensive? Why is it that some people, they can't even get out of jail because they can't pay a bond? Just because they can't pay a certain amount of money, they can't even get out. Is this justice? Is this a good idea and perspective of justice that we inflict and implement in our day-to-day society? And we know it's not. And I'm going to tell you why it's so distorted and it's so twisted and it's not for us. So we got to go straight to the beginning. You see, the only reason why it's twisted, the system of the law is twisted, the idea of justice is so distorted is because it is an idea and a system that doesn't belong to the people that have implemented it into society. The same way with religion, how it's distorted and how it is not for you, it drains you the same way the law does, financially, spiritually, physically, any way, any aspect of living, the law or religion will drain the shit out of you. So the main reason why is because these are systems that were taken and were reintroduced in society. And the people who reintroduce in society do not understand the systems because they're not from those systems. And so they only have selfish and malicious motives behind the implementation. For example, we understand that the idea of religion comes from ancient African spirituality. We understand that the Holy Trinity comes from ancient Egypt. We understand that the idea of incense, the idea of drinking Jesus' blood, eating the bread, these are all voodoo rituals. We understand that, right? We understand that libations are also something that are used in all Christian religions that stem back from African spiritualities, such as religions like voodoo and etc. So the same thing with the law, that idea of justice and law comes from the people of the same culture in Africa. The scales of justice that we know of today, the one that is held by the quote-unquote Lady Justice, well, we understand that origin, right? I'm going to break it down. Lady Justice that we know of in regards to the symbolism of justice, of modern day law, is the Lady Justice holding the scales of justice. So Lady Justice is a Greek goddess from the Greek era, and her name was Dike, actually, Dike, and she's holding the scales of justice. And we know, we've seen the scales of justice, right? But see, most people don't understand where that comes from, and that comes from ancient Egypt. The scales of Maat, M-A-A-T, scales of Maat. That was the scales that that dictated where you go in your afterlife, right? Your heart, and this was even in the Bible, your heart had to weigh just as much as the feather. If it weighs any more, that means you would sin, right? If it weighs any less, you didn't do enough. It has to weigh. Remember Thoth walking you to the afterlife. This is the idea of the people in ancient Egypt, the continent of Africa. The scales of justice, the perspective, the idea of it was taken by the Greeks. And so the scales of Maat became Lady Justice, the Dike, holding the scales of Maat, now called the scales of justice. And then that was their idea of creating man-made law. But what we need to understand is, just like I was telling you in regards to religion, it had to stem from some kind of religious foundation. So the same idea of religion, which was stolen from the ideas of African spirituality and places like Egypt, the idea of Jesus, which is Horus, right? The idea of Mary, which was Isis, the Holy Trinity, which I've already explained in my previous video. But my point is that even down to the 10 Commandments, which were stolen from the 42 negative confessions of Maat, right? These were 42 sins that every person in ancient Egypt would pledge not to commit. 10 of those sins became the 10 Commandments that we know of today. Y'all look it up. The scales, the 42 negative confessions. So my point is that these ideas have been stolen and then re-implemented in society by people who do not understand these ideas, and they come at them with malicious intent. The modern day law that we know of today originates from this thievery, which is the Greeks and Romans, right? We understand that the Greeks literally took the Egyptian gods and made them into their own gods. So the same thing with everything else that the society of Egypt laid their foundation of civilization on was what the Greeks basically just stole and recopied and pasted. Hence the law. Now, they had to base the law on some kind of religious foundation, like I was saying, which was canon law. And if you guys don't know what canon law is, these are rules and regulations that were put together by ecclesiastical authority, i.e. the Christian church, specifically the Catholic Church. We understand that they had conferences and meetings, for example, the Council of Nicaea, where they were figuring out the concept of their Jesus that they don't know about. So they had to get together and make up some shit. By them making up their own idea of what they stole because they don't understand it, and they come up with things like the Council of Nicaea, that established something called canon law. And so that is what Roman law is based off of. Okay? Now, the first idea and the first example of a lawyer back in the day was somebody of stature, usually somebody of wealth, would come and speak on your behalf. It was just somebody who was reputable would come and stand in your behalf. I would bring you in just because you're some kind of businessman and you hold, high stature in the community, and you would talk on my behalf, and then the judge would show me leniency. That was their idea of law. So how it became to what we know of today, to where, like I said, that it's English, right? We all know that the lawyer that you hire is speaking English, yet you don't understand what the fuck he's talking about. The reason why it came that way is because they understood that not only was it a market, but it was a certain stature of society that can exclude themselves and then exploit the people that are hiring them, straight up. So my point is this: laws were created, but then loopholes were created right next to them to go past these goddamn laws. So that's why when you get mad when people like Jussie Smollett get off, it's because the same law that you think protects you is letting them off. You see? So it's helping you and it's hurting you at the same time. But is that what justice is? Is that the idea of justice? Is that it cuts you and heals you at the same time? See, then fast forward to today, that you get a lawyer And the only reason why you get that law is because you know nothing about the law. But you have to understand that that's not your fault. It was made to deceive you. It's the fine print. It was made for you not to understand. It was made for you to pay someone to understand for you. So I'll conclude with the question, which is something that it's a rhetorical question that you should ask yourself. And not even just about this, but anything that has to do with your life that someone else has control over is when you see what I just laid out in regards to the idea of it, and like I said, how warped it is present day, you have to ask yourself, what is their ultimate intention? What is their ultimate intention for coming up with such a devious system